Montel Williams was doing what he had done every single morning for 40 years, pushing his body past what it wanted to give. Discipline wasn't a choice for him, it was oxygen. But this morning, his body pushed back. The bleeding started in his cerebellum, a severe hemorrhagic stroke, the kind that kills people, the kind that leaves others unable to speak, unable to walk, unable to recognize their own reflection. Doctors would later tell him the bleeding missed his brainstem by less than an inch between Montel Williams and oblivion. He spent a month in the hospital, then weeks of grueling physical rehabilitation. And as he lay there, staring at a ceiling he couldn't quite focus on, the question that had haunted him for 61 years came back, louder than ever. How many times can one man fall before he stops getting back up? Baltimore, 1956. A city of brick and sweat and unspoken rules. Montel Brian Anthony Williams was born on July 3rd, the second of 4 children. His father, Herman Williams Jr., was a firefighter, a man who would later make history as Baltimore's first African-American fire chief. His mother was biracial, a detail that mattered in a city still negotiating the terms of its own integration. But inside the Williams household, race wasn't the primary currency. Discipline was. Herman Williams was what people in those days called old school. He went to school for almost 18 years to earn his bachelor's degree. He worked, he studied, he rose, and he expected his children to do the same. Reading wasn't optional, it was required, every single day. Montel later recalled, "Watching and learning from my father was crucial. He was a serious disciplinarian and incredibly structured, but structure isn't the same as warmth. And discipline, when it's the only language spoken, can leave a boy fluent in achievement but illiterate in peace." At Andover High School in Lincecum, Maryland, Montel excelled. He was elected class president both junior and senior years. He was a good student, an athlete, a musician. He did everything right. And still, somewhere inside him, a voice whispered, "Not enough. Never enough." That voice familiar to every child raised under the shadow of a parent who demanded excellence rather than celebrated effort would follow him for the next 50 years. It would change languages, from a father's silence to a military commander's orders to a television executive's ratings expectations, but it never left. In 1974, at 18, Montel enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. He later transferred to the Navy, eventually graduating from the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis in 1980 with a degree in general engineering. 22 years of service. 22 years of rising through a system that didn't always widen its doors without resistance. He became a cryptologist, one of the first black officers to serve in several specialized capacities. But the military wasn't his final destination. In 1989, while still serving, Montel began speaking publicly about drug awareness and at-risk youth. He spoke to over 1 million kids face-to-face in schools, colleges, town halls. One of those appearances caught the attention of a Paramount television producer. The producer reportedly turned to a colleague and said something that would change everything. "That man does not perform sincerity. He simply has it." In the fall of 1991, the Montel Williams Show made its national debut. It wasn't just another talk show. At a moment when daytime television was crowded with confrontation and spectacle, Montel arrived with something almost disorienting. He listened. He challenged without humiliating. He held space for stories that other shows exploited: veterans, families in crisis, children lost in systems designed to forget them. By the mid-1990s, the show reached 20 million households across 170 countries. In 1996, Montel won the Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Talk Show Host. The show ran for 17 consecutive seasons. But here's what the cameras didn't capture. The man standing on that stage, holding that statue, was already exhausted. Not the kind of exhaustion that sleep fixes, the kind that sits in your bones and whispers that you're running on borrowed time. He later admitted, "Winning gave me a bigger stage." But a bigger stage just means more people watching when you fall. There's a particular cruelty that fame visits upon the people who stand closest to it. Not upon the famous themselves, they chose the arena, but upon the ones who love them from the sidelines. Montel Williams was married 3 times. His first marriage, to Roche Lacy in 1982, came during his years of active naval service. 2 children, Ashley and Marissa. The marriage dissolved in 1989, his second marriage to Grace Morley in 1992. 2 more children, Montel Jr. and Winter Grace. They divorced in 2000. His third marriage to Tara Fowler in 2007 arrived at a moment of profound personal upheaval. The pattern wasn't malice. It was absence. The show required everything. Every morning, regardless of the schedule, Montel was awake before the city. Exercise wasn't recreation, it was ritual, a remnant of the Naval Academy where physical readiness wasn't optional but existential. And then the show, the meetings, the appearances, the obligations. One associate later recalled, Montel never stopped caring. He just couldn't always stop long enough to show it. And in a marriage, stopping is everything. He admitted years later, with the quietness of a man who has spent decades arriving at an honest reckoning. I gave everything to the platform, and the people closest to me paid the price for that. That is not something I am proud of. That is something I carry. The platform had given him a voice that reached millions. What it had quietly taken in exchange was the simpler and more irreplaceable gift of being unreservedly present for the few. Montel Williams was 43 years old, at the absolute zenith of his professional power, and his body was sending signals he could no longer ignore. The symptoms had started decades earlier. He first experienced vision problems in 1980 when he was about to graduate from the Naval Academy. Then, every year or two, he would cycle through really weird, severe pain in my feet, in my shins, and sometimes in the back of my leg, but he pushed through. He had trained himself through 2 decades of military discipline to absorb physical discomfort without complaint. Pain was just information. Pain was just something to overcome. Then came the numbness in his hands, the pins and needles running through his body with no identifiable source, the fatigue that sleep could not repair. After a battery of tests that stretched across months of quiet, private dread, the diagnosis arrived: relapsing-remitting multiple sclerosis, an autoimmune disease in which the body's defense system attacks the protective layers of fatty tissue surrounding nerve fibers. There is no cure. He later recalled, I sat in that doctor's office and I thought about every single person who had ever sat across from me on that stage and told me their life had just been turned inside out. And then I understood for the first time what that actually feels like from the inside. He went public with the diagnosis in 2000, not because he wanted to, but because he learned that someone in the medical industry was prepared to sell his information to a tabloid. I was very much afraid that by coming forward, it was going to affect my career, he admitted. That's what I was worried about. And that's exactly what happened. The MS didn't just take his physical comfort, it took his identity. The same iron discipline that had carried him through the Naval Academy through 22 years of service, through 17 seasons of daily television production, the very physical and mental endurance that had been his most reliable weapon was now the quality being targeted by his own biology. The disease attacked the nerve pathways from the waist down. He described the pain as feeling like walking barefoot across open flame. Present not occasionally but continuously, a permanent background frequency beneath every waking hour. His hands, which had once signed commissions and clasped the hands of countless guests, developed a tremor and numbness that made the simplest physical tasks into daily negotiations with his own nervous system. And beneath it all was the psychological weight of uncertainty. Multiple sclerosis does not announce its next move. It simply exists, advancing or retreating on terms entirely its own, leaving the person living inside it in a state of permanent negotiation with the unknown. One of his children later recalled that period as the first time they saw their father truly afraid, not of failure, not of obscurity, but of becoming someone his children wouldn't recognize. He later confessed, "When I thought about what the disease could take from me, I kept coming back to the same thing. Not the show, not the career, my kids, the thought of not being present for them. That was the only thing that genuinely frightened me." There's a particular kind of rebuilding that has nothing to do with recovery in the clinical sense. It is not the restoration of what was lost. It is the creation of something different. For Montel Williams, that rebuilding began in 2002 with the establishment of the Montel Williams MS Foundation. He channeled the currency of his public profile into research funding, patient support programs, and the systematic dismantling of the silence that surrounded the disease. He testified before Congress, not for the first time, but now with a different kind of authority. The authority of a man speaking not about others, but about the interior of his own life. "I was not going to whisper about this," he said. "Whispering is how things stay broken. In recent years, he has hosted Military Makeover with Montel on Lifetime TV series dedicated to honoring military families through home renovations. The show has been on the air for nearly a decade, entering its 44th season. "We've done 45 families to date," he said, tearing up. "We take deserving veterans and their families and take their homes and we remake them from the ground up. This is one of the pure joys of my life." And through all of it, he has used medical cannabis to manage his MS-related symptoms, calling it a lifeline that gave him his life back. "MS does not have me, I have MS," he said. "I define myself," he declared. "Yes, I have MS. Yeah, it's difficult, yeah, it's hard at times, but you know what? I can work through it." At 70 years old, Montel Williams is not the man he was at 40. He is not the ratings phenomenon, the Emmy winner, the decorated officer standing at the summit of a career that seemed designed to last forever. He is something more difficult to achieve and more difficult to sustain. He is a man who faced the thing he feared most, not failure, not obscurity, but the loss of his own body's cooperation, and he faced it without flinching. The MS is stable now, but the pain remains. "There are days I wake up," he admitted. "Sometimes the pain is so devastating I don't even want to put my feet on the floor. However, I put my feet on the floor. Get your butt up." His net worth is estimated at approximately $15 million, significantly reduced from his peak years, in part by the financial realities of sustaining both a chronic illness and a philanthropic organization. But he's not measuring his life in dollars anymore. "Life is precious and I want to make the most of it," he said. He continues to serve on the boards of the Fisher House Foundation and the Ann Romney Center for Neurologic Diseases. He's pitching new shows, advocating for PTSD and traumatic brain injury treatment, and he's urging a divided culture to talk instead of shouting. Noise isn't news. Nowadays, if it can turn into an argument, it succeeds. We're all in this together. We're all going to end up surviving or not. The tragedy of Montel Williams is not that he suffered. It's that he suffered in ways that could have broken anyone and refused to stay broken. He gave his voice to millions who had none. He gave his story to people who thought they were alone. And in the end, he gave us something rarer than success, the permission to be both broken and undefeated at the same time. Share this story if you've ever had to rebuild from the ground up. Comment below with one word: still standing. Because the greatest stories aren't the ones without scars. They're the ones told by the people who chose, despite everything, to keep going.